Welcome back to Legacy of Leaders, where we interview the most interesting leaders in the community. I'm your host, Whitney Mincey, and I am joined by a very special guest, Miss Stephanie Pyren-Fortel of Stephanie Pyren Studios. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your studio and everything you're doing as an artist and illustrator extraordinaire.
Oh my goodness. My studio is obviously in Jacksonville. I do everything from children's picture books, designing the characters, to doing portraits, fine arts, watercolors, pastels, oils, whatever, copies of old masters, and illustrations for various and sundry businesses.
And so how did you get into all of this?
Well, it's been all my life. I worked 45 years in Los Angeles in all the major cartoon studios. I did copies of old masters in Beverly Hills after I left animation, and then in France, and then I came back to animation. And I've been painting all my life. My mother was an artist, my sister's an artist, so it's in the family.
Yeah, okay.
We need a banker, though.
Right. And so we have a couple of your books here as well. These are books that you've illustrated.
Yes.
Did you write these also?
Yes, the music lesson I wrote.
Let's take a look and see. This is the music lesson?
Yes.
All right. And what's this story about?
This is a story about a very little mouse who is a conductor. And he has helped a farm animals create a little orchestra. And that's one of a series that I will be doing. And his name is Maxime. Happens to be my first grandson's name from my husband's side.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. And then we have a Way Up High Where the Dragons Fly. And so tell us about this one.
This one is by an author who passed away. I was able to get this book to her 2 days before she died in a hospice. But she went to Tibet, and she was just fascinated with the country, and she sent me all pictures, and it's just a beautiful country, and she asked me to illustrate her poem, which I did. And since then, I have actually illustrated maybe 8 separate books, some from Canada, Los Angeles, and now I'm working on Read USA, Jeremy's Journey Through Jacksonville, looking for leaders. And that's one a month, and that's a fascinating book.
Yeah, that sounds
Company,
very
and it's
interesting.
Read USA.
Okay. And so for those that come out to Stephanie Pyren Studios, what will they find there?
A hodgepodge of paints, paper, everything on the wall, my cartoon stuff, fine arts, a library of books. And that's about it.
Okay. And they can purchase your art here,
Yes.
I'm assuming?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And do you host events there as well for the gallery part, or
Not really. And my studio is rather small at the moment.
Okay.
But I do have a website, www.stephaniepyrenfinearts.com. I also have some of my paintings in fashions coming out of the gallery in Quebec, Canada.
Okay.
So that can be purchased through them. And obviously my book can be purchased through them, or my email, which makes more sense than my website.
Gotcha. So before we sat down here, you were telling us such an interesting story of what brought you to Florida. And so we only have a little bit of time, but if you could sum up the grand adventure that led you from California to Florida, what would you tell our audience?
Well, we were supposed to be in France, and we had everything packed to go on a shipping cart and everything. At the very last minute, the house did not get sold. The owner said that I was told not to sell it. So I said, okay, now what? And I had friends in Miami, so we decided to come out and find out what we can do. And we actually purchased our house. We went back to California, sold whatever we could, because we had a humongous house there, and this one was much smaller. We packed up 2 large U-Hauls. My husband drove one, his friend drove one, and I drove his truck. Came across country, and then I had to go back to work at the studios. So every 3 weeks, I was back and forth between California and Jacksonville, because he had to fix our house. He made me a studio. He developed the whole house. So I was sending him money while I worked, and I was just flying back, and I still had to work while I was in Jacksonville. So it was rather tedious.
Yeah, sounds like quite
We
a
did it.
journey.
Oh, yes.
Well,
Never ending.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, bringing
you.
in these beautiful books. And unfortunately, we are out of time. But for those who want to learn more about Stephanie Pyren Studios, make sure you go to iwantabuzz.com. All of her information will be there. And we will see you next time on Legacy of Leaders.